you guys. Good morning, everybody. Breaking this hour and new information on a massive power outage that helped cripple the nation's busiest airport. Wow. Power is back on at Atlanta's airport. 1,000 flights were grounded when the power suddenly went out. Thousands still stuck there. Much more on this coming up inside America's Newsroom this morning. That's a big story. First, though, this is a critical week for the White House, and it kicks off at this hour. President Trump set to deliver a speech unveiling his vision for national security as the White House inches closer to its first major legislative victory. Hope you had a great Christmas, Hanukkah, holiday weekend. Brand new week starts right now on Bill Hammer Live.
No small holiday weekend here. A lot going on.
Yes, indeed.
All right, let's get right to it. I'm Sandra Smith. But first, we've got these developments in the Mueller investigation. The president saying he's not considering firing the special counsel. But the Trump transition team claims his investigators improperly obtained tens of thousands of private emails. At the White House, President Trump reacting to that serious accusation.
Not looking good. It's not looking good. It's quite sad to see that. So my people were very upset about it. I can't imagine there's anything on them, frankly, because, as we said, there's no collusion. There's no collusion whatsoever. But a lot of lawyers thought that was pretty sad.
We have Fox team coverage for you this morning. Judge Andrew Napolitano is standing by. But first, we go to Chief White House correspondent John Roberts. He's live on the North Lawn. So, John, what about this idea that the president wants to fire Robert Mueller?
Good morning to you, Sandra. This is an idea that was floated by a Democratic member of Congress who, with no evidence to back it up, suggested that she's heard that the president wants to fire the special counsel, Robert Mueller. This is something that has been speculated time and time again over the last few months. And at every turn, the president's legal team, the president, the press secretary knocks it down. Sources tell me that the president's legal team has got a very good relationship with Robert Mueller. They're meeting with him this week, by the way, and that the last thing that they would want is for Mueller to be fired, a new special counsel appointed, and the whole process started over again from scratch, something that could drag this investigation on for years. On the way back from Camp David, the president responded to new rumors that he was going to fire Mueller, saying that's not something he's even thinking about. Listen here.
Do you still be integrity firing? No, I'm not. No.
At the same time, and you talked about this at the very beginning, the Trump transition team, an attorney for the Trump transition team, Corey Langhofer, has sent a letter of complaint to the relevant oversight committees in the House and the Senate, saying that the GSA and the special counsel's office acted improperly when the special counsel requested of and got from the GSA tens of thousands of emails that were sent back and forth by the Trump transition team in between November 8th election and the January 20th inauguration of 2016. They say that the GSA, at the very least, should have contacted the presidential transition team to say that they got the request and that they were planning to fulfill it. A lot of those emails, I'm told, contain privileged information. The GSA and the special counsel's office deny any wrongdoing. In a statement, the special counsel's office saying, quote, when we have obtained emails in the course of our ongoing criminal investigation, we have secured either the account owner's consent or the appropriate criminal process. I'm sure, Sandra, you and Bill will be talking more with the judge about this in just a couple of seconds.
We certainly will, John. What can you tell us, meanwhile, about the president's speech that we're expecting this afternoon?
Yeah, 2 o'clock, the Reagan building this afternoon, the president will lay out his national security strategy, his vision for America's place in the world and how to preserve peace and prosperity and security the world over. It really relies on 5 pillars. Let's put them up on the screen so you can follow along. First of all, protect the American people, the homeland, and the American way of life. That's by strengthening border security, reforming immigration, among other things, also promoting American prosperity, rejuvenate the economy through regulatory and tax reform, new trade deals, preserve peace through strength by rebuilding and re-equipping the U.S. military. That, of course, is a tenet of Ronald Reagan's administration. One reason why he's giving it at the Reagan building. Advance American influence around the world, champion American values while not seeking to impose our way of life on anyone, and pursue a regional security strategy. Work to promote security and stability in an entire region, not just in individual countries. This really is a change from the Bush administration era national security strategy, which sought to promote democracy the world over. Michael Anton, a spokesman for the National Security Council, this morning saying some past administrations have bitten off more than they can chew, and this president doesn't want to do that. Listen here.
It's also realistic about what American power can achieve in the world, and there's a frank recognition that the president's critique that he gave during the campaign of the past couple decades of American foreign policy, that it tried to do too much. It overly defined what America's national interests were, and American foreign policy also tried to do things that, frankly, we've learned through hard experience were perhaps not achievable.
The bedrock of the president's security strategy is America first, but at the same time, Sandra, encouraging other countries, including most of America's allies, to put their citizens first as well in order to build and preserve peace and security around the world. 2 o'clock this afternoon, Reagan Building. We'll be there.
Thanks for helping us kick off a big week here. John Roberts, thank you.
We will be watching for now, as John mentioned there. We're going to bring the judge, Anna Napolitano, Fox News senior judicial analyst. And good morning to you.
Good morning, Bill.
3 big topics. The president says, I'm not going to fire Mueller. Is that the end of that, Judge?
I don't know if it's the end of it. I hope it's the end of it. If he does fire Bob Mueller, the investigation does not go away. It just ratchets up. It may give the president some personal gratification to fire his tormentor. Some new tormentor will come into play. It keeps coming back and back because of the perception that Bob Mueller has a political axe to grind rather than a legal one. That perception is widely held amongst the president's supporters.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, the emails during the transition phase.
Yes.
You say you're appalled by the accusation.
I am appalled by the accusation of this lawyer for the trustee for the transition. Transition is a corporation that existed to get Donald Trump from Mr. Donald Trump to President Donald Trump. It ended at the moment of his inauguration. The trustee is the successor corporation. The lawyer for the trustee says, we just found out that all of our records were subpoenaed by Bob Mueller. Therefore, Bob Mueller did a bad thing. He didn't. First of all, Bob Mueller doesn't subpoena anybody. A grand jury does. And in order to get a grand jury subpoena, Mueller's people have to testify before it under oath as to why they need the records. And once the records are served on the GSA, the custodian of the transition records, it's the GSA's duty to tell the transition, we got a subpoena. So we're going to comply with it unless you get a judge to interfere with it.
You're saying that this is the law school 101.
Yes, and I'm saying Bob
they're arguing that how do you not impair future transitional teams coming into the White House in a new administration? What's the defense on that?
You either don't send anything to the TSA and they sent to the GSA, excuse me, and they sent everything to the GSA, or you enter into a written agreement with the GSA which says if you receive a subpoena from any law enforcement entity, before complying with the subpoena, you will tell us first. So if the feds want your banking records, let's say you bank at Chase, they serve a subpoena for your records on Chase. It's not their duty to tell you this. It's Chase's duty to tell you.
I think the bigger picture here is the final point about the transition and how devastating the interviews could have been now.
Yes.
Between the FBI and members of the administration, because you would argue if you have the emails, you have the information, and now you have your line of questioning, and you're arguing the transition team had no idea that happened.
So many people from the transition now work in the West Wing. Almost all of them were interviewed by the FBI. At the time of those interviews, the FBI had read their emails. If they asked them questions about their emails and it showed deception or lying to the FBI because the person being interviewed didn't know the FBI had their emails, that is potentially devastating to them. That's the trap that General Flynn fell into. When the FBI asked him about his conversations with Ambassador Kislyak, they already had the transcripts of those conversations.
And that's the danger ultimately you see in the legal sense.
Yes.
We'll see where that goes there. Thank you, sir, very much.
Yeah, you're welcome,
to see
Bill.
you on a Monday, all right?
My pleasure, Bill.
More coming up on this, Sandra.
Nice to see the judge this morning. Meanwhile, we have a big show on tap for you today. First up, Jason Chaffetz at the bottom of the hour. And then Alan Dershowitz will join us in the next hour of America's Newsroom. Stay tuned for all of that. Atlanta's International Airport crippled yesterday by a power outage. Power was fully restored around midnight. The nation's busiest airport was brought to a standstill around 1 p.m. Sunday afternoon after a fire in an underground electrical facility caused the entire airport to go dark. More than 1,000 flights were grounded, leaving thousands of holiday travelers stranded. Now, this morning, a whole new holiday nightmare begins as airlines scramble to fix their schedules and get get those people to their destinations. It may take days, we're told, to sort through the mess, causing headaches for folks trying to get home to see their family and friends for the holidays.
I think they really feel badly for everybody. I know it's been tough, and you look around and you see the hordes of people who were here yesterday. There weren't a whole lot of complaints, except how could this possibly happen to an airport this important and this size?
I just kind of wish it was like a bit more clear, like what was kind of happening, because we were just kind of shuffled outside and we didn't really know what was happening, so that was a little bit annoying.
All right, so that is not enjoyable, and we wish those people the best, because it's going to be a major process to get those people to where they were going.
Where was the backup power? Where are the generators? What happened to them?
A lot of questions.
Sounds me like a hack in Atlanta. I mean, that's a big deal.
A lot of
Live report from Atlanta coming up here. Momentarily now, we wait on this. Back on the Hill, Republicans poised to achieve their first legislative victory this week as they gear up on a vote on a tax reform bill. But will any Democrats cross over and vote yes? Democratic Senator Joe Manchin is on deck. Live coming up here.
Plus, the senior DOJ official demoted for taking meetings with the agency behind that unverified Trump dossier, facing the Senate Intelligence Committee today. Details next.
Also, one of our top stories, you just heard about it, Trump transition team leveling serious accusations against Bob Mueller amid growing Republican outrage of what they call anti-Trump bias at the FBI and the DOJ.
There are two fundamental questions. Did the FBI pay Christopher Steele, the author of the dossier? And was the dossier the basis for getting warrants to spy on people associated with President Trump's campaign? If the answer is yes to either of those questions, then this is as terrible as it gets, as wrong as it gets.
Fox News alert: Bruce Ohr preparing to testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee in a closed-door hearing today. He's the Justice Department official who was demoted in the wake of revelations about undisclosed meetings with Fusion GPS. That's the company behind the dossier containing unverified allegations about then-candidate Donald Trump. Ohr's wife, Nellie, was employed by Fusion GPS.
Can you say flatly that Congress will pass this tax plan this week and send it to the president to sign before Christmas?
I can. It's a historic moment, and we're excited to be here. This has been a terrific process with the House and Senate working together in conference, and there's a terrific bill that's going to get to the president to sign.
There you go, Treasury Secretary Chris Wallace selling the tax bill on Sunday. That will be up for a vote this week in the House and Senate. All signs indicate Republicans will have a bill on the president's desk before Christmas. Will they have a Democrat voting with them? They will not have Arizona Senator John McCain as of today. He will be absent for the vote, headed back now in Arizona. Democratic West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin is on the Appropriations Committee. How you doing, Senator? Good morning to you.
Good. Merry Christmas to you. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm terrific. Thank you, and thank you for coming back. What will you tell a family of four in Wheeling, West Virginia, why you cannot vote for a tax cut for a family?
Well, first of all, it's not permanent for the individual. You know, if we're going to put our priorities based on our values, they're the ones that need it the most, a permanent tax cut, okay? Next of all,
10 years
Bill,
is better than nothing, don't you
yeah,
think?
well,
I mean, Republicans would argue if you got a family of four, they make $84,000 a year, instantly it's $2,000 in their bank account.
And
sounds like
Bill,
a pretty good deal.
Yeah, and then on top of that, Bill, you have the mandate, which we have a fix for the bill. We have a Lamar Alexander bipartisan fix. It'll get 60-plus votes. If Mitch would just put it on the agenda to vote for, we could fix that. But what they're doing, rather than that, is get rid of the mandate, which is going to basically disrupt the markets, I think, drastically. But there's so many things, and the biggest thing is the deficit. There's no guarantee and there's no trigger to prevent us from going off the financial cliff.
They would argue that the growth that's going to come with the law will make up for that. Do you buy
Bill,
that?
I'm happy. I hope that happens. And all I've said is, can't you reduce the corporate tax just to stop it at 25%? Every corporation is tickled to death. I think there needs to be reform and reductions. And I've been able, over the last 3 months, to share with the White House and share with my colleagues the 4 different timelines and things that we would agree on, or hopefully that we could discuss. Once they decided it was going to be a partisan bill only, with 51 votes needed as Republicans only, we were no longer in the mix.
So no Democrats are going to vote for this, are they?
The way it is right now, unless there's a tremendous adjustment here, just to, you know, the last one I gave, I can't see anybody. We gave the last one, the fourth thing, it was 4 different things. 25%, We said remove the mandate, end the outsourcings, which creates tax havens for corporations overseas, and the large tax deductions for the very, very wealthy at this point in time, because the military is in dire need. And if this was reform, which is not reform, this is a tax cut, and everybody's going to get a little bit of something.
Little bit. You know, you strike me as a pro-energy, pro-business senator.
I sure am.
I just think that, you know, I mean, you can't always get what you want. And in fact, sometimes you got to give a little and take a little along the way. And it seems like that's what even Republicans are doing on this bill. Last comment on that, then we'll go to another topic.
Hey, Bill, real quick, if I can say,
please. Somebody
somebody should be concerned about the $20 trillion. And then here's what I'm going to tell you. As soon as this is passed, they're going to come back and ask for more tax credits to be given away for what we call the extenders. That's going to happen. If you had true reform, you wouldn't need that. Then in January, they're going to bust the budget caps as far as the Budget Control Act, the caps, because our military, we were all briefed on how desperate the military needs money.
And if that is the case, then voters are going to decide next November on that.
They're going to have to make the decision.
Right.
Okay.
This crossed my desk earlier today.
Yeah.
Apparently you gave an interview with regard to Al Franken's eventual resignation. You said the following: the most hypocritical thing I've ever seen done to a human being, and then have enough guts to sit on the floor, watch him give his speech, and go over and hug him. That's hypocrisy at the highest level I've ever seen in my life. Made me sick, end quote. You're talking about Democrats there.
I'm talking about human beings, Democrats, Republicans, anybody that acts under these conditions. First of all, the women should have a process where they're protected to come out and not retaliation as far as their jobs or their careers. I want to make sure every female is protected in any walk of life and any job setting. On the other hand, you want to make sure there's a process, and we have a process within the Congress, the Senate, and the House, which is called the ethics probe. And he's willing to. Al said, please take me through this. I'll live by whatever the outcome and recommendation. If they say I'm a predator and I should leave, I'll leave. But Al, I think everyone that listened to Al's speech on the floor, which is first time for him to speak out openly, maybe had second thoughts. And I'm thinking maybe they'll come to their senses.
And you're arguing for due process by way of that ethics committee. Just a very pointed question. Yeah. Is your comment directed toward Kirsten Gillibrand and others?
Anybody and everybody that feels what they did was the right, decent thing to do, and if they have second thoughts, that's who it was directed. I would hope they'd have second thoughts. You ask for a person the day before to please leave and don't be an associate of mine any longer, and then sit on the floor and go and hug them. Was it said, thank you for leaving? I'm glad you took my recommendation. I'm sure that he would have been stunned. I've just seen they're destroying a human being's life. That's not who we are. It's not what I was sent here to do. I'm not going to be jury and judge, but I think the person has to have process. And then when that process is completed, an investigation, and everything is shown that he has moved in an inappropriate way and he should no longer be seated, we'll get rid of him. Or if that's the case. If not, then we should come to the conclusion it was not of the extent to where he should be removed. I mean, let him have that process.
Senator, thank you for your time.
Sure thing.
I'm out of time now, but I look forward to speaking to you again, okay?
Please, Bill.
Joe
Anytime.
Manchin,
Thank you.
Democrat from West Virginia. Thank you.
Well, Bill, the nightmare at Atlanta's airport has only just begun. Airlines now scrambling to reschedule more than 1,000 flights. Can they get folks home in time for the holidays? We are live on the ground there next.
Also, 2 weeks in, wildfires still roaring through Southern California. What they are waking up to on this Monday morning. Coming up next.
Well, that power outage at the nation's busiest airport, not the way you want to start off the holiday travel rush, that's for sure. Folks hoping they can get to their destinations now that power is finally restored with Christmas just about 1 week away. Jonathan Sari is live from Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Atlanta. Jonathan, I'm sure some very, very upset, frustrated people wandering around there.
Yes, Sandra, you can see all of these people behind me lining up, trying to book, and in most cases, rebook flights. Delta Airlines alone, the flagship carrier here at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, canceled 1,000 flights yesterday as a result of the power outage and canceled 300 flights, most of those early this morning. But this outage affected all of the airlines. You're talking about the jetways unable to go to aircraft, so it took long to board and disembark people from the various aircraft. Escalators weren't working, leaving people in wheelchairs stranded on some of the upper concourse levels here. And in many places, there were no lights in some of the corridors, creating a very spooky environment. Passengers described the scene.
This is a
absurd. Like, people are sleeping on the floor like homeless people. It's just like, I've never seen anything like this at all.
And Sandra, because this is the holiday travel season, even though the power's back on and flights are quickly returning to normal, there aren't a lot of free seats. And so a lot of these people, it may take days before they're able to rebook on flights and get home or to their various final destinations,
Jonathan,
Sandra.
it's just an incredible story. And you think about people traveling this time of year with babies and children and older folks and people with health needs. What happens now, going forward?
Yeah, well, Georgia Power says it's trying to figure out exactly what went wrong so that this never happens again. This wasn't supposed to happen in the first place. They have redundant power lines feeding into this airport, but that fire that broke out in the underground substation, apparently the flames were so intense that it not only knocked out that underground station, but also took out the redundant lines, the backup emergency lines leading to the airport. And so there was no power going into these buildings here, Sandra.
Jonathan Siri, an unbelievable story that is not over yet. Thank you, sir.
Fire will account for a lot of things.
Ooh, I do not wish that on anyone. That's tough.
Allows a lot of still open-ended questions as to how, if you've got backup systems, the backup systems, whatever the truth is in the end, that just shows you how reliant we are on technology. People trying to rebook their flights and they can't do it, and they're standing in lines for 12 hours at a time.
It's going to be a big struggle probably for the next few days. We'll watch it.
So, 28 past. Back to this Russia matter. Strong words from Jason Chaffetz. Have a listen on this.
I don't think the Attorney General is up to the job that he's doing. He's absent from this. The reason there's a special counsel is because he had to recuse himself from everything.
Well, he's talking about Jeff Sessions. Does he still feel that way? The former congressman is on deck right after the break on that and more. Coming up.
Plus, the Pentagon apparently trying to answer the age-old question, are we alone in the universe? Well, we are now learning about a top-secret military program.
Deep space.
This is a Fox News alert. Whoa, look at this stock market opening for trading just a few moments ago. Off to the races. Dow up 133 points out of the gate. Remember, investors are taking in all that detail that we got Friday night about the Republican tax bill. Well, it was released after the close of trading on Friday. So this is the first opportunity that this market has to react. Bill.
Yeah.
I will point out, excuse me, I'm getting choked up about this. I'm letting you know that this is, if we close another record, that is a new record for the stock market. If it closed another record today, it's the 70th record-breaking day for U.S. stocks this year.
I mean, we likely never see this again, right? Would you agree?
That's unbelievable.
I mean, on the way up, when you see a move like this, every day last week, market sets another record.
Check out your 401k, because up 25% this year.
So I doubt 25,000. I mean, at this point, it's like, why not?
It's 200 points away at this point, so
hang on there. All right, 3 minutes into trading there. In the meantime, you've got the sun coming up on the West Coast, and check this out. They are still fighting this deadly blaze, burning northwest of L.A., flames scorching 270,000 acres since that fire sparked 2 weeks ago, the third largest wildfire in that state's modern history. And Adam Housley's live in Ventura, California, where you've been spending a lot of time. Adam, how goes it right before sunup?
Yeah, Bill, it's hard to believe it. 2 weeks ago tonight is when that fire started. You know, we were here Tuesday morning on this street, driving by this home and others like it, firefighters dousing the homes with their water, and they still weren't able to save it. 2 weeks later, you can see the destruction is just massive through here. About 1,000 different buildings were destroyed by this fire so far. It's been a few days since they lost one, thankfully, and they're starting to get a handle on it. The winds and the weather are starting to finally get better here, but for 2 weeks, this fire's been going on now. 270,000 acres, the third largest in California history. Unbelievable. It's nearly 420 square miles, almost the size of the city of San Antonio. It's 45% contained at this hour. The number is expected to go up, with some 8,500 firefighters still battling the flames in a number of different flanks of this fire, which, again, starting to get a better handle on it, but they won't have full containment until after New Year's. Now, while things are calmer today and over the weekend, we did see some erratic winds, still very dry here. The Santa Ana winds over the weekends gusted up to 65 miles an hour on Saturday, caused a few flare-ups near Mount Montecito, which is about 35 miles from us. Nearly 18,000 homes and businesses are still officially at risk, and this fire, again, has already burned some 1,000 structures.
We were able to do prepping in these areas days before to allow the fire to burn around some of these homes. We were able to fire out some of them, but unfortunately, when you have winds that severe, and we all saw it yesterday, you just physically cannot save every home.
A somber day on Sunday as a funeral procession stretching some 200 miles from Ventura all the way to San Diego was held for fallen firefighter Corey Iverson. He was from the San Diego area. He died on Thursday from smoke inhalation and burns as he was fighting this fire. Hundreds lined the roads waving American flags as his hearse passed by. The 32-year-old Iverson leaves behind his pregnant wife Ashley and a 2-year-old daughter. Donations from a GoFundMe account continue to pour into the family. I can tell you that, Bill, as I give it back to you here in this area in Ventura, I know a number of folks that live here. They were on the overpasses watching that procession, posting some of the videos online, and then once that was done, they came here to homes like this and spent hours helping their neighbors sift through the ashes, and any little memento they find, they'll post it on social media as kind of a tribute that it made it through. But as you can tell, Bill, there's so much that did not make it through here, and this fire could soon be the largest in the state's history. The last one was the largest right now is the Creek Fire from 2003. We covered that one as well. Bill?
Adam Housley, good luck, okay? Wish you get some rain and keep the winds down. Good luck there in Southern California.
Need it.
In the meantime, back on the East Coast, we are waiting to hear from the White House and President Trump. In a few hours, he will give a significant national security strategy speech, and here are the 4 pillars. Protecting the homeland, promoting American prosperity, preserving peace through strength, and advancing American influence abroad. Well, what does all of that mean? Former New Hampshire Governor John Sununu with me, sir. Good day to you. Merry Christmas and a happy
Bill. Merry
Monday.
Christmas to you.
What does it mean to you, this Trump doctrine of sorts?
Well, you know, it's coming at a very important and appropriate time. The president's about to get his tax plan through. It's a major accomplishment on the domestic side, and he's basically, I think, laying out for the world the agenda for his other responsibility, and that is not only President of the United States, but leader of the free world. I think the world is beginning to understand that this Mueller hunt has nothing behind it, and so they are, I believe, waiting to hear exactly what the details are of this national security agenda the president will lay out. I really think 2018 is going to be a foreign policy year, and I hope that the president takes full advantage of the momentum he has coming out with this domestic success of legislation.
Why next year in terms of foreign policy? What would be so different now, given the pressures from North Korea, et cetera?
I think what will be different is that the world, I think, the leaders of the world were kind of holding their breath to see if there was any substance behind all this Mueller investigation. I think they have now come to the conclusion that there's nothing there, and they're ready to partner aggressively with the U.S. to try and reshape what's going on around the world.
That is very interesting. We will watch that. Newt Gingrich wrote a piece. Here's his headline, okay? Trump's national security and tradition of Truman, Reagan, and reality and not elite fantasies. He will not sketch out or express a preemptive military action, which runs counter a little bit to Bush 43. He will call China a strategic competitor, which is something 43 did as well. What do you think of that?
No, I think the president is moving us back from fantasy land that really dominated the Obama approach to foreign policy. I think realism is a good choice of words. I think this is a president that understands that we do live in a world with tough neighborhoods, and we have to have policies that put fences around those tough neighborhoods, or else that those problems will seep into the United States and into our friends in Europe.
Speech 2 o'clock this afternoon. You'll see it live here on Fox. One more topic. Apparently, Vladimir Putin got a little help on behalf of the CIA and President Trump in disrupting a terror plot in St. Petersburg. What do you think of this phone call? How do you square this relationship based on what we know today?
Look, we have always had an interesting relationship with the Soviet Union over the past few decades. We recognize them as our principal national security competitor, but we also understand that we are able to cooperate to get significant success. We will not solve the North Korea problem without the help of the old Soviet Union, Russia today, without Russia being aggressive and active in it. And I think the two phone calls they had last week will be helpful in that respect.
And you think the Mueller matter goes nowhere?
I think the Mueller matter has gone nowhere already.
Well, Governor, thank you for your time. John Sununu there in New Hampshire with us today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
20 minutes before
All right, Bill, I'm going to put on my sports hat
Here we
for
go.
a second. Sunday's game between the Steelers and Patriots causing heads to spin in the final second.
From the votes at the UN on the president's decision to move our U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. We are watching that, Sandra, coming up momentarily.
Plus,
here.
everyone is in the holiday spirit. Why one criminal failed doing his best Santa impression.
There's lots of room for Santa, but it's got to be the right Santa and not the criminal Santa.
We have a man finding himself in jail after police say he tried to pull off a heist by using Santa's route. It's about a week ago. You see that nose, Sandra? Yes, he is 32.
Yikes.
And he is arrested on suspicion of trying to rob a business in Citrus Heights, California.
Ugh.
Firefighters say he tried to slide down the old chimney, and that's when he became stuck.
Probably figuring that the chimney would go straight down into the fireplace, and it actually took a 90-degree corner. It sounded like he was in there for quite a while before he made the phone call. And I think he was getting a little bit claustrophobic.
I would too. Claustrophobic. Fire crews had to use special equipment to pull him out after he dialed 911 for help. So he had a cell phone. Police say he was able to move just enough to use that phone.
I need some clarification on that story. What a story.
It seems that we hear one of these every year. I want to know the guy who's successful actually goes down the chimney.
Yeah, you don't hear those very often, do you?
Just goes out covered in soot. So that's our fellow.
You know,
right
if I may stop for a moment on this
Yes,
Monday
you may.
morning, the week ahead of Christmas, this
Yeah.
is no slacker week. This is a very consequential week for this president.
It's the new normal.
And but here we are with days left, and they are promising, Steve Mnuchin over the weekend, saying this is no doubt going to get done, tax reform.
I think the move, too, with Senator McCain and given his health, flying back to Arizona, that would seem to be, at least publicly, a nod of confidence that they can pass it without his
And
votes.
the president's saying if we need him, he'll come, but right now we're okay.
And there's a question about Thad Cochran's health, and some suggested over the weekend that they could survive a yes vote if they lose both of them, because you have the vice president coming in to break a tie once you get to 50. Anyway, that's what we're waiting to see. In the meantime, you got Santa's helper out there down the chimney in California.
All right. And meanwhile, I want to bring in Mark Thiessen, columnist, The Washington Post, FNC contributor, fellow American Enterprise Institute. Mark Thiessen, you join us now. And you heard Bill and I talking. This isn't grab the eggnog and hang out this week. This is a lot. There's a lot on this president's agenda. This is a huge, ambitious timeline. And Congress is set to pass this thing. And the stock market's saying I'm looking at a Dow up 200 points right now.
Absolutely. Look, this is one of the most consequential weeks of Donald Trump's presidency. When you think about what he's doing at this period of time, he just announced a couple of days ago a sweeping progress in regulatory reform, pulling back the wet blanket of regulations that have been smothering the economy. He's announcing a big national security strategy this week. He helped stop a terrorist attack in St. Petersburg by sharing intelligence with the Russians. Later this week, he's going to, if all goes well, they seem very confident, pass the most sweeping tax reform in 3 decades, something no president since Ronald Reagan has been able to achieve. And he's going to get a deal by the end of this week to avoid a government shutdown, I'm promising you. So this is going to be a huge, huge week for Donald Trump's presidency and a huge week for the country, quite frankly.
Meanwhile, there's some critical Russia testimony that we anticipate. Bruce Orr set to testify today, closed-door hearing, Senate Intel Committee. He's the now demoted DOJ official. He will be testifying. Andrew McCabe, the FBI deputy director, set to testify tomorrow. The House Intel Committee. You have some advice for the president based on all the accomplishments you just listed off and how well all these things are going, and then this testimony coming this week. You would tell him what?
I would tell him ignore it and do your job. This is a huge week. All the things, the accomplishments I just got, you're going to pass the first comprehensive tax reform in 3 decades. That is enormous, enormous achievement. Everyone was saying how you couldn't get anything passed. Now you're getting the biggest thing passed. Don't get distracted by Mueller. Don't get distracted by these hearings. You're going to force the Democrats are not going to shut down the government. Everybody's worrying about the Democrats shutting down the government because there is funding in that short-term spending bill for children's health. The Democrats are not going to, on the eve of Christmas, take health care away from poor children because they want DACA passed right now. So he's going to get a big victory when it comes to pushing through a government spending bill. He's announcing his national security strategy. These are all big presidential things, historic presidential things. Mm-hmm. Focus on that. Let the Mueller thing pass. Don't get distracted. Don't tweet. Be president. This is a huge week for you. Don't make the mistake of letting them drag you down the Russia rabbit hole.
The Wall Street Journal editorial board pointing out in a piece this morning, Democrats against tax reform, a piece they say, unlike the past, the GOP has had no help passing these cuts, saying yet this year, not a single Senate Democrat seems willing to vote to cut the top rate a mere 2.6% points to 37%, or reform a corporate tax code that Democrats have long recognized as anti-competitive. Had they engaged with Republicans to provide 60 votes, they surely could have influenced the bill. Is this something they will live to regret, Mark?
Absolutely, especially there are 10 Democrats running next year in states that Donald Trump won, including 5 Democrats in states that he won by double digits, in some cases by 30 or 40 points. None of those Democrats are voting for this tax bill. None of those Democrats bothered to engage the president and try and work with him on the tax bill. Mm-hmm. I think Donald Trump, when this bill passes, he needs to go to every one of those 5 states and say, if it was up to your senator, we would not have this huge tax reform. You would not be getting that tax cut. You would not be getting the wage increase in your pocket.
Based on everything you just said, Mark, we have so much going on, we have to leave it there. And it is always good to get your take on things and an update for the week. Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Sandra.
Watch that. Also, this from overseas, a violent checkpoint raid in Afghanistan's capital, leading to the deaths of 11 Afghan officers. What we're learning about that attack as the war on terror continues in the region. Come on back right after this. And a breaking news alert here now from London, England. This is what we're picking up. Don't have a lot of information. We'll work through it as we go. British police say they are now responding to what's considered a significant incident at the Royal Air Force Base that is used by the U.S. Air Force as well. This is north and east of London, Mildenhall in Suffolk, England. British media suggesting an individual in a vehicle tried to force his way through a checkpoint. This, however, has not been confirmed. We're getting this from the Associated Press and others working the story now in England. Royal Air Force officials referring calls to police. Okay, so we will hold our fire, so to speak, and work for more information to figure out what's happening in there. So stay tuned. We'll get more in a moment here.
We'll wait for further detail on that. Meanwhile, Fox News alert for you. ISIS on the attack in Afghanistan as militants storm a building near an intelligence training center, triggering a gun battle with security forces in the heart of the Afghan capital. Senior Foreign Affairs correspondent Greg Palka is live for us in London with the latest on this. Greg?
Hi, Sandra. We've been tracking this over the past hour or so. It appears to be over, but it appears to be yet another attack or attempted attack by ISIS right in the center of the Afghanistan capital of Kabul. 3 of their fighters said to storm a building there under construction at the country's national spy headquarters. They used a car bomb. They used RPGs. There was an intense fight. These 3 militants apparently were killed by Afghan security forces. There's no other casualties being reported. The once secure Afghan capital has been a battleground over the past several months. Just in May, we saw a car bomb attack, the truck bomb attack, which left 150 dead. All of this, Sandra, comes on the heels of a report by the Pentagon to Congress just on Friday saying that all was going well with the fight in Afghanistan. But it did note in the past 6 months, there have been 2,500 operations or strikes involving U.S. Special Force operators along with Afghan security members. They were going after both the Taliban and the ISIS. Remember, President Trump has put 14,000 troops in this country right now, and that war has been going on for 16 plus years. Back to you.
All right, Greg Palka in London for us. Thank you.
As we come up at the top of the hour in a moment here, there is a top Justice Department official with ties to Fusion GPS about to go under oath before the Senate Intelligence Committee. More on that coming up just moments away. Top of the hour and a busy Monday morning. Come on back.